am by no means done learning Spanish. In fact, I feel so far from being done that feeds some of these things. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about things that I will do the same and things that I will do differently learning other languages after my experience learning Spanish. The inevitable disclaimer that this is not me saying that any of these things are the right or the wrong way. It's kind of more of a reflection, and I think it will be interesting to look back on in the future to see whether I still feel that way, how things develop, etc. So for anyone who's not familiar, I have been learning Spanish for over 5 years now. I started at the very beginning of 2020, and it's now the beginning of 2025. That was not necessarily all the way through. There were definitely time periods, especially in the first 2 years, where I did not do very much. And I did almost entirely immersion learning, input-based learning, whatever you want to call it. Now I am actively studying for the DELE B2 exam. So we will go through them in an order that makes sense in my brain. The first and probably spiciest take on here is that I will not do input-only learning then for the next language that I learn. I have been thinking about this so much over the past year, really, and I've talked with many people about it. I've talked with some of you about it in comments or on other people's videos. I spoke with Natural Languages, Alvaro, on his channel about it. He talks about it in almost all of the interviews that he does, and I've watched a lot of them trying to get other insights from other people who've had the same experience. I do think that you probably can learn a language through only input. I do think you still need to practice output, obviously, but that's not really what I'm talking about. It's not that actually, Tanya said this in her video that I'll have on the screen as well. It's not that I feel clumsy, it's not just that I needed to break the ice of speaking, because I think if you did truly learn a language, if you truly acquired all of the language, you would only need that kind of ice to be broken. You would only need to de-rust your speaking. But that is not the experience that I'm having. And no matter how much I keep pushing it off into the future, it continues to not be the experience that I'm having. And I think this is something where probably everyone's a little bit different, and the amount of time that everyone puts in is going to be different. But for me personally, I stopped tracking a little over 1,000 hours, and that was, I don't know, over a year ago, probably close to 2 years ago now. So I would guess that I have 2,000 plus hours of input now. And there are people who have significantly less hours than me who I have spoken to, who have talked about how things will sound right or wrong to them that to me just do not. Where I'm at for most things is that if something is actually just wrong, then it sounds wrong to me. If something is conjugated wrong, if a word is used wrong, that sort of thing, that just sounds objectively bad to me. But when it's a choice between using subjunctive and not using subjunctive, using one past tense or the other past tense or the other past tense or the other past tense, they don't usually sound right or wrong to me, because in a different context, that might be right. If you take the pieces of the sentence, they're not usually grammatically incorrect on their own. It's the combination. It's inaccurate. You are crossing the intention of the phrase and the grammar of the phrase are in contradiction. My brain has not figured that out yet. So I could just keep listening and hope that eventually that clicks, but I hate it. I do not want to. I never want to be in this position again where I can listen to politics, I can listen to philosophical things, I can talk about social issues with people and make, while talking about those things, the most incredibly basic grammar errors and know that I'm making them, but be unable to rectify the situation. Like, I just don't enjoy this. Like, it's not, I don't want to either have to be silent hoping for, after 3,000 or 4,000 or 10,000 hours that all of this would click and just truly be silent for that long, or experience what I'm experiencing now, which is speaking poorly. I don't want to do it again. So I will incorporate some amount of grammar review, speaking, and writing in languages moving forward. I still do think that a period without forcing yourself to speak is good, but it will be significantly less, and I will probably try to incorporate ways to speak without trying to construct new phrases necessarily. I don't know. We're going to be feeling it out. On the flip side, something that I absolutely will keep in all languages moving forward is so much input. Like, I am so eternally grateful for those thousands of hours that I have doing input. Like, I can understand virtually almost everything, and that is incredible, and like, that is more important to me than being able to speak. Like, as much as my speaking is frustrating the ever-living daylights out of me right now, it is more important to me to be able to understand, because if you understand what someone is saying to you and then you respond with something super basic and broken, but it's very obvious that you did understand, like you are responding in fact to the nuance of what they told you, you can still talk to them. Like, it's fine. And I don't feel lost. I feel frustrated, but I don't feel like lost, frightened, like there's none of that. So, not to mention just the pure enjoyment of being able to read and watch almost whatever I want and actually be able to enjoy it. Like, that is priceless to me. That is the number one reason why I learn languages. So absolutely still continuing an overwhelming amount of input, an input dominant approach. Well, I won't say overwhelming amount of input. There are people doing like 7-hour days. That's not going to be me, but lots of input. Something that I do not want to do moving forward, overly depending on group classes or even private classes that aren't necessarily with a specific tutor working towards a specific goal. On my channel, I've tried a bunch of different platforms to do group classes, to do private classes, and I still think that those were beneficial to me. Like, I have probably done well over 100 classes, the majority of them group classes, but also some private classes. While those were really good for, like, again, breaking that ice of speaking, they were fun, like, community things where, like, I would see the same people in a lot of my group classes and there would be really good conversations. It was definitely good at developing that ability to have conversations, because that's obviously what you're doing the whole time. So I do still think that they are beneficial, but I was sort of leaning on those as, well, this is going to improve my speaking. Like, this is the thing that I'm using to improve my speaking. I would say, like, yes, it improved, but not that much, especially if you're not doing outside work surrounding the group classes. Like, oh, I was trying to explain this in the class, but I really didn't. I couldn't find the words in the moment, so let me write out something about that so that I will have that formulated. Like, I was doing none of that. None of that. I didn't prep for classes. I did not do anything after classes. except for maybe like look up a word or something. If that was the max I was doing, it just was not an effective sole strategy, obviously. This, seems extremely obvious in hindsight. But yeah, like it's a tool in the toolbox. It is not the entire work crew. Not directly related, but something that I will continue to do is to not focus on one dialect. There are obviously exceptions or fringe cases, whatever. There are dialects that could be entirely different languages, all of this. I'm not saying that I will learn every dialect of every language that I ever study, but especially with Spanish, it is extremely common to kind of worry about which dialect to learn, only do input from one dialect, etc. I just don't ascribe to that. I think if you want to do that, that's totally fine. But for me, I prefer to be able to understand every dialect and to be able to pick and choose what I like from different dialects. I made a hostile friend, not a hostile friend, a hostile friend from Chile when I was in Lisbon, and I spoke to her and like we talked for hours and hours over a couple different days, and I spoke so badly, but it was fine again. But she was like, yeah, you understand me better than most Spaniards do. Like, she was saying how she has a roommate who just cannot understand her at all, and she did not even have a very thick Chilean accent, in my opinion. And I was like, that is crazy, because you just sound like a pretty much neutral Latin American speaker to me. But I just I can't not understand people speaking the language. Like, that's something that would just bother me so much. And I just don't particularly care if my accent does not reflect one location. Like, it already doesn't. Like, obviously I'm picking up specific vocabulary from Spain. Like, I say vale all the time now. So, I'm planning to learn German next, and that's not to say that I would necessarily like learn Swiss German right off the bat, maybe someday down the road, but definitely like Austrian German, not Swiss, I just said not Swiss, like Bavarian German. Like, I would prefer to incorporate all sources where possible. And same with European and Brazilian Portuguese. I vastly prefer Brazilian Portuguese, but I do want to get to a point where I can understand European Portuguese, even though those are very, very different. So something that I need to learn the difference between in my next language learning endeavor is something being uncomfortable and disliking something. Because I have on here as a keep not doing activities that I hate. Like, I do not want to ever get to a point where I am disliking language learning. That's like a hard line for me. However, I think I often would give up on things when I found them the least little bit uncomfortable or difficult even. Like, I did not have a good sense of being able to distinguish between discomfort and dislike, because I was doing an activity the other day on Profe VL, and it was very long, very, very involved. And I really wasn't disliking it, but I kept finding myself like picking up my phone, scrolling, blah, blah, blah. And like, I kept having to be like, no, you are doing this right now. Like, you just need to keep going. And I was thinking about how like, even like, I don't know, 6 months ago, I probably would have been like, I just don't like this. Like, this is not how I like to study. I'm just not going to do this. Where like, I don't even know that was necessarily true. It was just that like, I was bored. I wanted something more like dopamine, inducing. And so yeah, I want to keep not doing things that I hate, but change my ability to kind of sit with boring but not really actually that boring things, just things that don't necessarily give off constant entertainment. And same principle on giving up on things because you don't see immediate results. I've often felt like when I do like grammar exercises, I'm like, I do these, I start to get better in that one session, and then the next time I try this topic, I've forgotten everything already. But that doesn't necessarily mean that long term it's not going to come back to you faster each and every time, and that it's not going to have an impact. Like, just because you didn't instantly in one study session learn a grammar point does not mean that that did not do something in your brain. Again, things that should be obvious, but okay, so something that I want to keep: consuming content above my level. I am diehard content above my level. I have gotten myself in trouble multiple times. It's such a like bitchy thing to say. But I have gotten pushback on this before, that I don't love learner content all the time. And I have actually, again, with the sitting with discomfort, my tolerance has gone up significantly. But I also don't even think that learner content is like the be all end all. I think that you need to challenge yourself. You need to push it. You can do more than you think you can do. But even aside from that, I just enjoy it. I love being able to watch native content or advanced things, or try to read things that are too difficult for me. It's fun. I like it, and I will keep doing it forever. A change, well, it's sort of a change. It's sort of a keeping the same, because I changed this mid-Spanish. So, I tracked Spanish at first, not from the very beginning, but from relatively early days. And then I stopped, and I think I will also still not track. And this was something that Steady Notepad mentioned as well when I was talking about this with people on Instagram. Yeah, I was extremely obsessive about tracking Spanish for quite some time. And then I just all of a sudden did not find it inspiring anymore. Sometimes I didn't even want to do something in Spanish because the effort of tracking it seemed like too much effort, which that's when you really know you gotta stop. I have thought about, for new languages, tracking doing the same thing, like tracking at the beginning. But I am not going to do that, I do not think, because I almost wish I'd never tracked Spanish. Because it is a bummer to go from having that information to not having that information. And that may sound completely ridiculous, and I understand if it does, but there's just this empty space now. I knew up until 1,000-ish hours, and then now we're just in the unknown. Whereas if I just don't track it from the start, then, and I do track for specific projects, 40 hours and 7 days language challenge, different intensive projects that I do track for those. So that's a good way to kind of get my finger on the pulse of how much time I'm spending, because obviously if I'm, that day felt about average and I spent X amount of time on that day, then you kind of know ballpark. But yeah, anyway, not going to track time, I don't think it's information that I can handle having. And then the last thing that is a change is not spend as much time analyzing the method of learning, which is really funny now that I'm literally sitting here making this video. But I think it's more that I don't want to spend lots of time anyway, consuming content about how you learn. Obviously not if it's someone talking about methods that worked for them, that's interesting and good info, new little techniques or study session inspiration, but more so this is why the comprehensible input method is bad. This is why the comprehensible input method is good. This is why you should never study grammar. This is why you should absolutely always study grammar. That kind of stuff. I mean, this isn't really something I need to worry about moving forward because I've already kind of set this aside. But yeah, I want to not pick it up anymore. I just want to try to keep a varied study routine where I incorporate a whole bunch of different things, consume a whole bunch of the language, and just keep going where I see progress being made. So yeah, that is where I am at. I am gonna get back to studying for this exam probably, but I would love to hear in the comments your thoughts, things that you have changed your mind on, haven't changed your mind on, etc. Would love to hear all of your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video.